Awesome. Okay. So before we begin, I just want to thank you all for agreeing to do this event with me. And I'm going to do a quick picture with you all, if that's okay. So, smile. Awesome, awesome. So I am excited to have you all share a little bit about your HBCU experiences. And to begin, you can just start off individually. We can go from Jalen down to Willie because that's the order I see. And you can introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do. If you're a student, tell us what you're studying and then what you do in your career field if you're an alumni.
All right. Well, once I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to speak on this platform. My name is Jalen Vernon. I am a third-year business management student from Chicago, Illinois, currently studying at the illustrious Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia. I'm just excited to be here and to share a little bit about the importance of Black men and the Black male vote.
My name is Markham Banks. I'm a class of 16 alumnus from the National Treasure, the Morgan State University, from Baltimore, Maryland, where I graduated with an international finance degree. I'm currently a project administrator in the cyberspace field, and I'm also currently attending GW for their cybersecurity graduate program.
Good afternoon, good evening. Again, thank you for having me. This is truly an honor to be on this platform and talk about the subjects we're going to engage in. So my name is Gregory Gibson. I'm from Houston. I pretty much rep Houston. I went to school at Morgan State University, graduated with a FACS degree, Family and Consumer Science. Now I'm pursuing my master's degree in higher education administration at American College of Education. And what I do for a living, I am a special ed teacher, so it kind of relates to my field of study in undergraduate. So I am still in the field of education. And again, I'm thrilled to be a part of this panel, and I'm excited for what's to come today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Willie Gillis. I'm a graduate of Morgan State University, class of 2017 as well. I'm originally from Suffolk, Virginia. Currently, I work for Richmond Public Schools as the head football coach as well as the health and PE teacher. And I'm grateful to be here and can't wait to have these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's get this started. I want to just start by, of course, the first topic that we came here for, which is the HBCU experience. So I want to first start by you all just being able to share a little bit about why you chose to attend your HBCU, and we can continue in the same order we went in.
All right. Well, for me, I've always known that I wanted to attend an HBCU. I've been surrounded by HBCU graduates, some of my family, church family. So I was always surrounded by people that went to HBCUs. And one of the main things I kept hearing was that it was just an experience that it was like none other. And I heard people that didn't go to HBCU say that I wish I would have had the HBCU experience. So from very early on, I knew that I just wanted to have that experience. I didn't want to be the one to miss out. Then a little bit later down the road, as it was time to start applying to colleges, actually, I chose Hampton because I heard about it on Judge Mathis. It was a court case, and they said something. He was a graduate of Hampton, and Judge Mathis was saying how Hampton was a great school. He said it was right there sitting on the water and that it was, rich in its history. And so that's when I decided to check out Hampton, and then I applied, and I was doing some research into the business field and the business programs and the band. And that was one of the main things that drew me was the band. But like I said, I always knew that I wanted to go to an HBCU, but specifically Hampton. It wasn't really a profound legacy story. I just really found out about it on Judge Mathis. And I'm glad I did choose that. I believe that Hampton was the right school for me.
By the way, Jalen, don't dismiss that. That's The fact that we have a prominent judge on TV repping the HBCU, that's everything. Um, Unlike Jalen, I originally was not. I was a late bloomer in regards to wanting to attend the HBCU, even though my parents were products of HBCUs. So I kind of shamefully admit that. But however, did I find my way? And I attended a PWI at first, immediately after high school, and I didn't like the culture, didn't like the environment, didn't feel comfortable, and I seek refuge at Morgan State, partially because of football, but more so because I wanted to, um, be in a better environment that was more conducive to people like me and for people like me. And so when I first stepped foot on Morgan State's campus, like it was an experience unlike any other. I never seen that many black folks just in all different types of array of them, like just to be themselves. And it's something, especially being in the DMV, also, one of the few pockets in America where you're part of the majority, right, and not the minority, which is a great sight to see. And so just being in that culturally rich environment profoundly impacted my 4 years, my matriculation process at Morgan, as well as into my adulthood. And so I'm forever indebted to my institution. So yeah, that's my experience.
Man, my Morgan State story is one that brings me great joy to retell. So forgive me if I get a bit long winded. I would say that Morgan State was not necessarily a choice of mine, it was an opportunity. Being a student athlete in high school, I was a bit undersized for my position. Again, I played in the state of Texas, very competitive. Helped to lead my team to state championships. So all of these fine things were happening, but I didn't have any college offers to play at the next level. They started to roll in relatively late, and Morgan State, like I said, they found me. I owe a ton of the opportunities that came as a result of me attending Morgan State to my first coach, Donald Hill Ely, Dr. Donald Hill Ely. He came down to Texas and recruited me and my best friend. And man, that was an opportunity that changed my life. And so I'm forever indebted to the illustrious national treasure in Morgan State University. I didn't necessarily have my sights on an HBCU initially, but I am indebted to it emphatically, and I really cherish my experience. So yes, again, my HBCU chose me, and we tangoed, baby. We tangoed.
Well, my experience with selecting HBCU, I feel like now that I look back on my history of my life, it was kind of pushed me in that direction all my life. Both of my parents are graduates of Norfolk State University. And being from Hampton Roads area, my dad was actually the head football coach at Norfolk State at one point in time. So everything that I was surrounded by had been around HBCUs. I had never really been onto PWI campuses, but just like Greg and Banks here, I was a student athlete, and I played baseball and football. So, and knowing that in the baseball field, the MEAC didn't really compete. It was only a select few schools that had baseball teams. So I was leaning towards going to a PWI if I considered to play baseball. And then knowing that football kind of found me at a young age, being around it day in and day out, I was able to receive a scholarship to play football at Morgan State. And just like Greg said, I think Coach Dr. Donald Hill Ely found me because during my time in high school, I was looking out at my senior year, and I didn't know which direction I was going. I didn't know if I would leave high school and go into the work field, go to college, or find a trade school. He gave me an opportunity to go do something that I love and to give back to my community once I completed my journey at Morgan State. So I'm thankful for that, and that was kind of how I ended up at Morgan State University.
Awesome. I love to hear the stories of how you came to attend your HBCU. So my next question for you all is, how did attending an HBCU, or how has attending an HBCU prepared you for the real world experience?
Um, I think, I mean, I don't know if we're going in this round robin, because kind of answer the question as it comes out. I think for me, being at a HBCU, it's worked in my favor tenfold. Working with my community and being in a predominantly black area, being in Richmond, Virginia here, and the community that I serve is kind of just the same as Morgan State University. It's a direct correlation to blacks trying to be successful and trying to do the right things inside the building, inside the schoolhouse, and as well as in our communities. And I think that it has prepared me to see the world, because I went to a diverse high school. My high school in Suffolk was very diverse. I had never been around that many African Americans at one time growing up. So being so, when I got to Morgan State, and it kind of prepared me to know that, this is a beautiful thing to have all these African American people here at one place and at one time, and we're all looking to be successful in life. So I leave Morgan State and I go to the work field, and I work into a school system in North Carolina and now here in Richmond, and I'm able to pass that same succession to the young people, so that they're able to see that even in any type of environment, especially ones that have all African Americans in it, we can be successful. So I think that was a great opportunity for me.
I'll go next. Um, I think one of the it might be on a more simpler end, but one of the most profound things, even though it's simple, is the confidence that any one of our HBCUs, all 104, provides for you, right? Because when you go into your next step of your professional life, more than likely is going to be an industry that's dominated by people who don't look like you. And so you have to go in there with the confidence. We could use our, present day vernacular, the swag, the mental fortitude to know I can compete with the best of them. And so I really feel like, as much as we undersell this value that all of our HBCUs provide, it's a vital one, because I think it promotes all of the best people in every industry for a workforce always, right? When it comes to my friends, and even you, when you graduate, Jalen, we'll be the best in our field, and I can say that with the supreme confidence, utmost supreme confidence. So that's what I would say.
So, as a result of attending Morgan State, that's so many things that I cherished about the experience. One, along the lines of what Willie and Markham were saying, man, just seeing the excellence. I don't want to call it black excellence. It is excellence. It's the epitome of excellence. From not only your peers, but the professionals, is what inspired me and inspires me to till this day, right? Impressed upon me. But next, it was the relationships I developed with my peers, and those relationships have led to, even now, me having a 1-year-old son. His godfather was a teammate of mine because of those bonds that we built. And these aren't some, degenerates. These, coming up from where I came up, I didn't always see the best elements of our people. Not saying that all of us entered Morgan State as the quote unquote best elements of ourselves, but we surely left better off than we came in. And it was all because of the process. It was all because of the institution. It was because of the community, which is deeper than an institution, on Cold Spring Lane. So I'm forever indebted to my experience at an HBCU, preparing me and equipping me with that swag, as my brother Markham says, that confidence, that gall, if you will, and also the thirst. The thirst to even reach higher. Because now I've seen, like Ta-Nehisi Coates says, once you experience this level of fortitude, now that's the standard. And so now brothers like Willie Gillis and myself and Markham and even Jalen in the near future, we're bringing that experience, that expectation, that standard back to our communities. So attending my HBCU is life changing.
I love that. I love that. And the part about it, just having this community that is just irreplaceable, right? Because when you get out into the real world, so quote unquote, real world experience, you don't have that ability to just be around the people that represent the best of you all the time, and that continue to motivate and inspire you to do your best and to always like maintain excellence. So just having that, like the process, like you said, just get rooted inside of you so that you always know who you are and where you belong, and you don't feel like you have to necessarily change who you are in order to fit in an environment, because like the confidence, like Malcolm said, it prepares you to be able to say, this is who I am, this is what I can bring to the table, and I know my value. And I love that for us. But my next question for you all is, what main factor do you think makes HBCUs irreplaceable?
I guess I can start off with this. I think one of the main factors that makes HBCUs irreplaceable is, I would say, our history, because just looking at the history of our organizations individually and collectively, seeing that our HBCUs were birthed out of a need for education for Black people, descendants of slaves. When we were not able to have equal education, we had to come up and build and create our own. So I think that's one of the main things that separates HBCUs from other institutions, because of our history. All of our institutions has their own individual intricacies, I guess you can say, in its history that makes every HBCU unique in its own way. So I would have to say one of the main things would be that history of our HBCUs and how we were forced to make our own and to come up with our own institutions.
Yeah, I'm going to further allude to what Jalen so eloquently put it. To think, so I'll back up here, right? So Howard University, Hampton University, Morgan State. Well, at the time it was Centenary Biblical Institute, but Morgan State, all were founded in 1867, and they're all south of the Mason-Dixon line. That's only 2 years after the Civil War ended, and 4 years for where most enslaved African Americans were free from the Emancipation Proclamation. Right. So if you think about in this construct, right, you had people who were able to first never knew the concept of freedom. Maybe from their distant ancestors, they've heard about it, but in the tangible form, you don't really know, especially in certain pockets in the South. And the fact that within a 4-year span, right, you go from several generations of enslavement, of oppression, and still, even going into the 1870s, you're still oppressed, and even today, to degrees we are, but to the likes of what slavery gave you, to within a 4-year span, you're able to in a concrete manner, put an institution up for higher learning. I think that's incredible. Now, I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for that, and I think that as what Jalen said earlier, that legacy is what makes that morning where you have an 8 a.m. class and you don't want to go, right? Thinking about that, listen, if I know my ancestors put in that work, I got to put in that work. That's what it's about, that pride. So I think that's what makes us irreplaceable. I don't think you could find that type of for some, they might find that motivation at PWIs, but you'll never get that type of spirit, collective spirit, motivation, connectivity with your ancestors to present day like you will at HBCU.
I think that's it, right? That's the foundation of it. You often judge an institution's effectiveness based on its root purpose. We know that with the Freedmen's Bureau and different initiatives happening in the South immediately after emancipation, these institutions were designed to have reared up the educators sent back into our communities. So to me, what makes our HBCU so irreplaceable is the fact that they were designed to produce our leaders. They were designed and are implemented in our institutions as reliable as the Black church, right? Immovable force is something that we all can rely on to gain resources. Not only that, I mean, think about the civic groups and the organizations as a result of our HBCUs who come back into our communities and contribute. Think about all of the initiatives that come as a result of our HBCUs. I mean, I can't imagine a world without an HBCU at this point because it's such an immovable force, and especially in our community. And we rely on the tangible outcomes of what you go to your HBCU and how you come out of it. So I think we're all saying the same thing. You know, the root purpose of our HBCUs is why it's such an immovable force.
And it's hard to speak after you, great guys, but I would just back that by saying that the unfiltered and the unbiased environment that it created for us and the culture that we have established at Black institutions is great for us leading up to what Markham had talked about earlier, having that confidence. And when you're in an environment that allows you to be everything that you want to be and more, it kind of sets you up for success in life. Like you don't want to have to get up every morning and know that you're going to be looked at as not equal or not able to do these things or not able to accomplish certain things based on your skin color. You want to be able to get up, go do your job, and know that you're going to be the best in the environment any day. So I think, and when you're at a HBCU, you walk your campus and you see your brothers dressed up, and it gives you that confidence. Say, oh man, this guy here walking across the stage, he might be the CEO of a company one day, and I could be sitting in a meeting next to him. And I think it leads to just great leadership and it provides us with the opportunities that if we were at PWIs, we might be looked at as lesser. And here we are standing in front of you guys, and we're all very successful individuals.
I love that. I can't even follow up to what any of you all have said. I just have to concur because just the legacy, the history, the heritage, where we come from, the power of resilience that we represent within our universities and colleges. Like, if you just see what HBCUs, some of our HBCUs have been through the past couple of years in terms of funding, but are still, we're still going strong. We're still here. We're still making it happen. We're still educating. And like you said, it's been since the 1800s that we've been doing this. So we've been in this game for a long time. And we're still here. We're still able to say we bring value. And as you can see from the leaders of the world that have been impactful, people have received Nobel Peace Prizes, like the Pulitzer Prize, like all these different prizes that I think even the ones that may not even go recognized, that aren't talked about, the unsung heroes, like they still made an impact and opened so many doors that their institution prepared them to open. And that makes us absolutely irreplaceable. But my next question for you all is for the alum. So what is one piece of advice you wish to give your college self?
I'll go first. I think if I could go into college and know anything, me and my brothers here, we talk about this a lot. I think the one thing that I would give myself some advice about is be more involved. I think that I was isolated being so that I was a student athlete. I kind of put myself in that realm that everybody else that went to the school was mainly general population or that I was supposed to be on this track to play football. I'm here to play football, do this and the third. And what I missed was the everything that came with the university until about my junior senior year, when I really saw that going to events and sitting down and talking to people that weren't like me or didn't think like me actually made me 10 times better than what I was when I came. And I got out of my element, and now that's something that I do regularly, where I go to places where I might be in environments and I talk to anybody. And it's not because I'm trying to get anything out of it, because just people have different walks of life and they have different experiences. And for me, being at an institution that people can go anywhere in the world or be from anywhere in the world and just have a conversation with them, it's almost like I can travel to where they're from and get their experiences right here on campus.
And listen, Willie, you started it, but I think I want to take it just a smidget further with my experience and what I would give myself advice on. Similarly to Willie, we were out of state student athletes. And being that we were out of state student athletes, especially in particular, in my case, coming from Texas all the way to Maryland, which was probably odd. You don't see that too often, right? Like in the student body, you don't see that far of a distance too often. So we as student athletes, as football players, we chose to insulate ourselves inside of a community within a community. And doing that, I shut off from networking right away or simply exploring the campus alone. I would do everything with my best friend. Like I say, everywhere we went, we was going there together. And it was like that shared experience. But the advice I would give myself would be, break away from the pack. You all right. You're in good hands. You're in the hands of your elders, of your ancestors. You right here in the community. You ain't got nothing to worry about. It's nothing to be afraid of, and embrace the journey. Because I realized eventually, similarly to what Willie said, around my junior year, as I started to, kind of spread my oats and spread my wings, I should say, and kind of network and feel my way through the university, man, I'm like, why did I miss out on this? And now as an alum, I'm really kicking myself because I love my university so much. And I'm thinking back to, man, this was here. These resources were here all along, right at my fingertips. Man, you can't miss out on that. So I just would advise my younger self to really submerge in the culture. Just really breathe it in. And trust me, you'll thank yourself later. And that's the biggest advice I would give myself.
Yeah, I'm definitely echoing off of these two fun guys over here. I would probably give. Now, are we speaking 18, or are we speaking junior year, or are we speaking? But more the overall undergrad, Markham, I would tell them intern. As what Greg alluded to earlier, explore more. Don't insulate yourself. Don't isolate. In a self-sabotaging manner to where you're so solely focused on one particular thing. You're not being able to network, which is vitally important. I mean, Jalen, you will soon find out, if not already, that this world is built off of networking. It's not about what you know, even though it's good if you know it, but it's definitely about who you know. And so I would definitely tell myself to get out there, meet tons of people. Don't, put all your eggs in one basket in the sense of solely focusing on one particular thing. And for me, it was because we were all teammates. I was a fellow athlete as well. And so I was so solely focused every summer, every chance I got, this is what we're doing. And so that kind of hindered me in the sense of internship opportunities. So I would take more of a stance on allowing myself to be more open at an earlier age or earlier tenure in my undergrad process to start interning at organizations.
No, we don't. I don't want Markham to let you guys fool you either. I think it was. I don't know if he remembers it, but I was being so that I was in public health. Markham used to always tell me I needed to be more involved on campus and I needed to do more. And it was an event I had to go to. The Surgeon General was actually on campus. Is Murphy at
Yep.
the time. And I didn't want to go. I was like, Banks, I'm not going. Like, I'm about to go in the room and just hang out with the fellas. And me and Banks actually went to the event, and it was so eye opening to me. And at that moment, I was like, wow, these people tour the campus, they come here and they give us something that they don't have to. And they have these conversations with us that we might miss out on. And that was kind of eye opening to me and kind of led me to go into a lot of events after that, speaking engagements or just people just having regular conversation.
By the way, speaking of Dr. Murphy, excuse me, I think he is also was reappointed at the same position by President Biden. So, that's 2 seats away from the White House, and we got to see him.
Yeah, yeah. And we set 20.
Amazing.
I love that, and I love hearing about your individual stories and how they kind of work together to tell a greater story of the HBCU experience, which I think is so important. But my next question for you all is, how have you worked, if you have, to recreate your HBCU experience within your individual communities? So almost to like pour back into your communities what you learned from your HBCU.
I think for me, it would just be advocating for being more involved in the community and giving back in any way I feel fit. I think that would be my best thing that I've given back because once I was eye open to, okay, it's a lot more out here. I had the ability to say I can go in any environment, like I always say, and give my best. So I think that would probably be the thing that I have used in the real world scenarios where, and I've given back to the community to just allow the kids to see the world as more than just the city you live in and try to get out and do more for your community.
Um, uh, so post graduation, re-entering into our communities that we work in, it wasn't the most easy to conceptualize. Oh, what is my plan? How am I going to give to these students what I've learned? And after doing it, this is my 3rd year as a teacher. I realized the students best benefit from us just naturally being who we are, right? But also, what I think I've contributed to my community is that expectation for academic excellence. So I do teach a disadvantaged demographic in special ed, but I hold them to the same standard I would hold anybody to because I see their black bodies and I know what we're up against. Not only that, I think, for a rough kind of what did I bring back to my community, we've done like strolls and step shows for the students to kind of give them a little taste of what happens on the yard at a college. That's important. That's a lot of times is the hook for most people. You get us with some sort of activities, and now look, I'm going to class because I got to keep my GPA up or whatever. So those things I've definitely tried to expose the students to, but most importantly, it's been my heightened appreciation for education, and thus, holding them to that standard.
I would say trying to, extract the HBCU experience and infuse it within my community, or I guess community of like workplace. Well, to give it a little background, like the organization I work for, we're talking about demographics out of 700 folks. You would find on average to be white, mid-50s, and male. So just within my offices alone, I'm just surrounded by baby boomers left and right. It's like as if I'm looking at my dad. I'm like, all right, this is I know we didn't do the same stuff this weekend. Well, maybe we did, but possibly not. More than likely not. But to kind of inject the HBCU experience into them, I did several things. So on a more serious note, I made sure that I lobbied to our HR departments, to our decision makers in regards to recruiting folks, that don't just go to the NABI event, the National Association for Black Engineers event, convention yearly, which I mean you could do, but there's all these others such as Afrotech, such as you know any type of event that HBCUs individually are hosting. Expand yourself, and you also have people here who came from those environments that can show you the intricacies of who to connect with and how to go about. And then on a more lighter sense, a couple years ago, it was Juneteenth, and I just started gesturing to folks saying Happy Juneteenth to you, and you could see the faces of my fellow white colleagues. Like I said, older, middle-aged white males, and they looked at me with huh, what Juneteenth? What is this? And so to them to see that type of, I guess, shock factor be brought up, and then their evolution of, since I'm slowly incorporating more and more history, of us into the mainstream for them. Their evolution has come a long way, and I think our office's evolution in regards to being culturally sensitive and stuff like that has also come a significant way as well.
Something I would say, as I'm, still a college student, but something that I try to do is just to encourage those high school, I mean, even younger, to attend HBCUs, because just as much good press there is about HBCUs and how great they are, there's also equal people, telling you not to go to HBCU because it doesn't prepare you for this and that. So one thing that I try to do personally is just to try to combat that and try to shed light, not just on Hampton. I don't want to just encourage people just to tell them that you have to go to Hampton, but any HBCU. I just want to encourage them to explore the different options and see the different programs, choosing an institution that suits you, that fits you in terms of extracurricular activities, academics, and whatever field you're choosing to go in. So that's something that I try to do, is just to encourage younger people to attend HBCUs.
I love that. And I just want to say thank you all for doing your due diligence individually and being able to help our institutions become greater and to continue to attract young Black students to be able to bring their brilliant minds to the table. And not even just necessarily Black, but just students from any background whatsoever, just that are interested in learning about Black history and legacy and the heritage of the African American community and what we've been able to build. But my next question is going to transition into the conversation about Black men in politics. So, as we know, we have turned a new wave in politics, and our administration now, with Biden-Harris administration, is now officially recruiting people from all multicultural backgrounds, and we've never seen such a diverse array of people within a cabinet position and within an administration before in any of the years prior to in U.S. history. So with that being the case, and of course to piggyback off of the discussion that we had concerning the events that took place on Capitol Hill in on January 6th, with the insurrection, and how we see that we had Officer Eugene Goodman come in and play a part in helping to keep the congressmen and women safe during that experience. Can you kind of just try to talk a little bit about why, tying all those different things in, you think it's important for Black men to be involved in politics, and also tell me your thoughts and opinions on Georgia having a new senator that is a Black man from a HBCU, I believe a Morehouse grad, and how that helps to shape your view of politics as a Black man in America.
So I'm a firm believer in, I guess, a cliche, but rather a quote. You can't be what you can't see. So I'll start with your last question first. Reverend Raphael Warnock being elected to state senate in Georgia is powerful. You know, not just on the symbolism aspect, but ultimately on what it did, what the implications of having a split Senate or now majority control of the Senate for the Democrats means for legislation our community would like to see passed. Um, but politics as a Black man and being ingratiated in politics is important. Now, one of my dear friends I call him Brother Senator, and I'm just waiting on him to thrust into that calling, because he has guided us for the long haul on civic awareness, just guiding his peer group, and I think that's essential. You know, we come from communities, man. Oftentimes, politics is not prioritized. We don't know the first rule of what the Senate cannot do. Who is the House? I had to ask him. I remember this was maybe a year or two ago. Who is Nancy Pelosi? You know, so those things matter to see someone like that looks like you being ingratiated in the process and prioritizing these things, because, as Willie said yesterday, politics have implications on every facet of our lives. As much as, you know, we disagree, we have some of us who are nationalists and we believe, oh, we shouldn't vote for either side. Listen, the gas you pumping, the food you're eating, you know, it's the game. It's the game of the terrain where we are. So we have to learn it. And I believe that, and this will be the last thing I say, but as long as we're living under these rules, we should have somebody representing us. We should have some bodies representing us and deciding the fate of the legislation that's going to guide us. So we shouldn't complain about the laws and the law of the land, but then choose to forego participating in civic duty.
I think I can kind of piggyback off of what Greg was saying. How can you control an environment that you have no you say so in? So in order to be involved and to be a part of something, you got to dive into it. You got to be there. And I think if we don't have anybody at the political stage for us, how can we advocate for change for the Black community, or more funding for the school systems, or and knowing that I'm a coach, advocating for Black NFL head coaches? How can we be a part of the change if we're not even in the seats to sit at the table? I think that that's a part of the conversation we've had before about if we're not sitting at the table, we'll never get a piece of the pie. So I think that being so that all these changes are happening, it's been more and more African Americans, like Brother Eugene. He's been awarded, what was it, the Nobel Prize? What prize that he just given? And that's a great starting point for him, because he was just there doing his job. And his job was to be excellent each and every day. And he might have been working that job for 20 years and never had a situation like that. But when the time came, he did what he was supposed to do, and he was awarded for it. And now the world sees it. And like Greg said, when you see somebody there, it's a little kid that's watching Brother Eugene and saying, man, that cop just saved the day. So now a little kid can now see him and say, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of the change as well.
Yeah. See, Gregory and Willie are preaching today because it's Sunday. I would say like the impact that you asked two questions. It was Black men in politics.
Yes, the importance of Black men in politics, and then your thoughts and opinions on where the administration is headed, and what's going on with the House and Senate, and the first Black congressman that we have in the Senate from Georgia.
Okay, awesome. That's a very three-pronged question, but we have time to. But that's all right. I would say the impact. I feel like one. So uh, Greg kind of touched on how, you know, the game of this, of life in the U.S., how it was constructed, kind of wasn't built for us, which we all know it wasn't. When Jefferson, as everybody says, he eloquently put, all men are created equal. We all knew that he was not meaning us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that, like a phoenix, we rose from the ashes of slavery, right? And then going to the age of Reconstruction, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you had what out of I believe it was 12 or 11, no, 11 Confederate states, you had about 5 state legislatures of that time period, post Civil War, that were controlled. And at the time, unfortunately, black women weren't franchised to vote, and women in general weren't, but especially black women. But you had 5 state legislatures that were controlled by black men. That's a powerful thing. And that's only talking about 5 to 10 years post slavery, right? So our power was always prevalent. Even when we were in chains, they knew our power. So the fact that they had to create an American style apartheid with coupled with the violence that ensued for the next 100 years to keep us away from being involved, to let you know the impact of what we hold, right? So I would say from that end, that's how much power we have when it comes to. And I love the topic, but I hate that it's humbly. I hate that it's black men, because we all know our sisters are the one who motivates us, gets us where we go, protects us as well. And like we seen in Georgia, who it was that got us to 50 senators and the control for Joe Biden. It wasn't a black man, right? So even with that being said, I think that's huge, to kind of look at Biden's administration. I am very happy, yet somewhat, I want to say a little disappointed or heartbroken, and only from the standpoint of the fact that Biden was able to be bold in the amount of diversity he was able to endorse through his administration. That's great, and that should not be taken away. However, it's amazing how for our first African American president, that same opportunity wasn't allowed for him, right? And he had to play it by the book, right? And so I think that shows you just the double standard, or the two Americas that a lot of people say that we live in today, and that we're still facing, even at the highest office with the most powerful man in the world, quote unquote, right? So I think that with the Biden administration, they from a performative performative act of equal justice, they're pushing in the right direction. But as we always should, and as concerned and involved citizens, we have to hold the feet to the fire, right? So that's why politics matter.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with the quote, with the saying that you can't be what you can't see. I'll just start off with that, and just the importance of being able to see people that look like you in whatever field. It doesn't necessarily have to be even politics, but just the importance of seeing people like you in certain positions. I know growing up, I was about 8 or 9 or so when Obama, 7, 8 or 9 or so, somewhere around there when Obama first got elected. And so from that young age, I was able to see a black man as the president of the United States. Now, whether, we agree with all the policies, I'm not, going to touch on that, but just the fact that a black man was the president of the United States. So you have to think that black people, black children were able to see a black person as the leader of the United States. So I think that's very important. And now we see with the vice president of the United States that she, a black woman, is now in that second highest ranking position. So you have president, vice president. And so now, just as I, as a young black boy, was able to see Obama as the president of the United States, now young black girls are able to see the vice president as a black woman. So I think that's very powerful, despite all the different political histories and the political policies and all that types of stuff. I just think it's very important for that representation. And in the same hand, while it is important, I just don't want us, and when I say us, not us here as on this panel or in this call, but just us as a people not to get complacent, because sometimes we have a tendency, I've noticed when, for instance, when the Black Lives Matter protests and the riots were happening, you would see companies coming out with these statements saying that they supported Black Lives Matter, or you would see the different basketball teams putting Black Lives Matter on the courts or on the back of their jerseys. Sometimes we get complacent with just the acts, but if there's no actions behind what they're saying they support, then what's the point, And so that's what I want us as a people to just continue to press for actual change, because it's not good enough to just see a company say Black Lives Matter, or to see someone says Black Lives Matter, or to see these different people in positions of power. As that is, it's important, but we also want to make sure that we're still pushing for that change as if there were no black people or people of color in those positions. So I think we should keep that same energy, all the anger, all the emotion that we felt and expressed in the protests. I think we need to channel that energy and just to keep that as we enter into these different political realms and whatever realms in our personal lives or in our jobs or wherever we may be, but especially in politics. And when we talk about systemic racism and systemic change.
I love that. I love that. And that is actually the perfect segue to go into my last topic, which is the power of the black male vote and just the African American vote just in general. And thank you, Malcolm, for speaking up on the topic of Stacey Abrams and what she was able to do for Georgia. And that was something that we discussed in the previous event we had with the Black Women Matter event. And so this is our continuation, just to continue to talk about how important the African American community and the Black community at large is to making things happen in America. We continue to come in and provide opportunities and resources that are not otherwise going to be there if we don't speak our truth, stand out, and like you said, choose not to be complacent. But that is something that I think sometimes makes us feel a little bit weary, right? That we deal with this tale of two Americas, where sometimes we're put in this position to help America to get to the place of becoming great, but America doesn't always let us be great, if that makes sense. And so the obstacles that we as a people have had to continue to overcome for multiple decades and for generation to generation is a conversation that needs to be had, because that is how we have sometimes become complacent as a community, right? Because you can get exhausted from that. So I want to talk a little bit about how to overcome the burnout that comes from being Black in America, and then talk about the importance of making sure that we stay on the ball with getting out the vote and why that is important, especially for HBCU.
I think the cure to burnout, the cure to us becoming complacent and settling and, okay, we got them in office, so now we're just going to sit back. We're not going to continue to press the line. The cure to that is often institutions, right? Institutions like your HBCU, institutions like what we're building right now. These conversations are the cures, are the remedies to that, because what you have is you stimulate a rapport about the community wherein we're holding each other accountable. Okay, so these are the things we expect from this administration. These are the things we need to have done within the first 2 years, within our interests, right? So I think overall, in short, the cure or the remedy to a lot of complacency is we must get involved in communities that are larger than ourselves. You can't just be the Monday morning quarterback watching CNN, yelling at the four walls in your house. You need to get involved with other conversations, other communities, and other organizations. That's the backbone of the Black community. Whether it be your church, whether it be HBCU, civic organizations, what have you. But you have to get involved. You can't just talk and expect. We have to be feet on the ground, grassroots organizations also, and we have to be doing it. So that to me is the remedy to that.
I think we have a voice in our communities that a lot of people don't understand. And with us being voters, we have a say so in what's going on in the world. And I don't just want to say, because I know we're here talking about the presidential election and the people, but the local election is what got me to voting the most. Because I know we had spoke about this briefly yesterday about how it directly correlates to our lives and our day to day actions. If you live in a small town and you don't vote for the sheriff you want in office, then you can't be mad when he arrests majority black individuals in the community. So I think that kind of just ties into our day to day actions. And then you look at what was your other question was asking us about how can we stay focused on the long. I would say set long term goals and don't just look at the local elections coming up in whatever so and so I'm going to go vote and then they'll take care of the rest. No, we have to do everything day in and day out to make sure that they're following up on what they're doing. If they don't, then we have the ability to have a say so. We go to these community meetings and go downtown and advocate for change. We have to put the best foot forward and hold the fuel to the fire and not let up at any point in time. And like I said, I think if you set out goals that can change. So me and being so that I work with the youth, I think that I'm giving them something that when they turn 18 and then they're voting, if I give them the knowledge now, the fuel to the fire will continue to burn because they'll always be believing in what Coach G told them. And they'll have the ability to make change and it'll drastically affect us for a long term instead of me just going to vote and I don't pass it on to the youth.
I would say what for black folks, I think what would quell complacency when it comes to the political process, I think solely relies within the entire day of January 6, 2021. Right? So you had multiple things that day, right? So you had the act of democracy being confirmed and transferred over into a new administration, into a new Senate, into a new Congress that was enhanced from the votes of black folks, right? From Atlanta, Georgia, to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan, to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right? And you had that tangible result there being transferred over. And at the same time, you had another side of America that was literally several blocks from on Constitution Ave, several blocks down from the Capitol building, who wanted to disrupt that, who could not believe and fathom that us as a collective, when we want to do it, we can and we will, right? Can change something. And then you saw the onslaught ensue, right? But then what goes even more that you can't stay complacent, is the fact that you have an individual, because I didn't touch on this earlier, Greg, I believe the show did, and you also posted a question too, so I appreciate it, that you had a cop who had no backup, right, with hordes of angry mobsters, almost as if this was like 1921, right, with hordes of angry mobsters coming at him. And not only that, he's a cop, right? And what we see a lot of times, especially when it comes to unarmed black men, right? He should have complied. I was threatened for my life. Therefore, I had to pull the trigger. He didn't even pull the trigger. He touched his gun, but he didn't pull out of the holster, right? And the fact that he was willing to divert whatever it was that he was trying to divert for the sake of people within the Senate and the Senate chambers to escape out of harm's way. The possible sacrifice that he would have gave, on top of, if we dive deeper into his history, he already gave the ultimate sacrifice twice, right? He served twice over in Iraq. He's already a patriot, right? So the fact that you then, with the whole dichotomy of back the blue, people wanting to violently hurt or even possible, not even possible, because they did kill an officer, right? There was no respect there. So the fact that you saw the two Americas right there in front of you lets you know that we have a lot more work to do, and we cannot whatsoever fall into complacency within this time. Well, really, frankly, ever when it comes to this country, because we was never thought to begin with to even possibly lead it, let alone that we are. So this backlash that thought that was going to happen, that they thought that they could overturn, it didn't, and it won't. As long as we keep doing what we're doing, they can't turn this ship around. We full steam ahead, baby. So that's what I think.
I agree. When it comes to the importance of the black male vote and getting people to vote, I think one thing that's important that we all can do is just encourage people to vote, but not just for the fact of voting, but just to explain why. A lot of people, it's human nature to want to know why. So if we're not explaining why it's important to vote, because a lot of people just think that voting for the president, it doesn't matter anyway because electoral college and this, that, and the other. But if you really begin to explain to people that voting, like you all said, and the importance of voting in your local election and how that can affect you immediately. So this is not just some presidential election and where, it's a lot of other voters, hundreds of thousands, millions of voters. But no, we're talking about in your local town and how that can affect you individually. I think if we begin to explain that more and make that more common knowledge of just the different, if what happens if you vote and just the different possibilities and all of that, I think that's very important to begin to explain to people why it's important to vote. And then I think we'll begin to see more participation within Black people, specifically Black men, because a lot of times we're not told about the different intricacies of voting. In terms of how to survive, you say being Black in America and to avoid burnout, I would say balance is very important. I think it's very important for us to detox ourselves, just as we detox our physical bodies. We might go on fast or whatever the case may be. I think it's important to detox our inner selves, because if we're not careful, then all of the toxins that we're putting in ourselves, what we're receiving from the media, social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, that can begin to take a toll on us and our mental well-being. So I think that it's very important for us as Black men, especially to detox. If you need to go to therapy, go to therapy, because a lot of these things are not commonly advocated for, but they're so important because if you're hurt, and as Black people especially, but especially as Black men, we go through many traumas. And if you don't take time to heal from those traumas, then they can have various effects on you, just as the same physically. If you're stabbed or shot or whatever the case may be, and you don't go and get the proper treatment for that, if you don't get surgery or whatever you need, then you're not going to be able to heal. I heard someone say as a quote, that if you don't take the time to heal, then you just end up bleeding on everyone else. So a lot of times what we see is people are bleeding, we're suffering, we're not healed. So I think we need to be able to take that time to heal, because being Black in America is not it's not an easy thing to do. So it requires a lot of balance and a lot of healing. And also I would say something else I thought about as you all were speaking and talking about the different systems in place. It was a quote that I heard. My dad, he told it to me. He said that we don't rise to the level of our goals, but we fall to the level of our systems. So if we don't have those systems in place, then it doesn't matter how big we're aiming to go. It doesn't matter how high you want to go. Say, for instance, if you want to get a six pack and you're still not eating right, you don't have a daily or weekly workout regimen, and you're not doing those things that will promote a better physical health, then it doesn't matter how big your goals are. It doesn't matter if you say you want a six pack and you want to be able to run a mile in 5 minutes or whatever goals you may have, because if those systems are not in place, then you will just end up falling to the level of your system. So in the same way, we see in America that we have these big goals of what we want. We want equality, equity, we want this and that. But if those systems are not in place, we're always going to end up falling to the system that we have. So that's why it's important to have Black people in politics. That's why it's important to have Black men in politics, that representation, because if those systems are not being changed, it doesn't matter how big, how high those goals may be, we'll always end up falling to those systems we have in place. So in order for true change to be in place, our systems need to begin to change.
You see how young brother Jalen just, oh, hey.
I would. We need to get a clap or something, man. That was beautiful.
He's preaching, and if we want to use this as a plug right now, Exhibit A, Jalen Vernon. That's what HBCU education provides, and experience provides for you. That's what it gives you. You want to talk about intellect? You want to talk about confidence? That was exhibited all right in that speech. So thank you, Jalen.
Wow, I mean, y'all just said just about it all. I don't have anything else to say. No more questions. I think what somebody said, Gregory said, pass the collection plate. Like, you done preached the sermon. So let's close out. I just want to thank you all. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You know, as Black folks, we can get a hymn on or something.
Look.
Benedict. Did anybody have any questions? I don't know if people that are attending might have had a question or something. I don't know.
Yes. I completely am trying to figure out, okay, yes, what you can do for the people in the audience, you can raise your hand, and then I believe we're able to invite you on and you're able to ask your question so we can hear your question. You don't have to do it in the chat if you don't want to. So go ahead and raise your hand so we can invite you on stage. If you have any questions.
Jalen, you said you studying business, right, in Hampton?
Right, yep. I'm business management.
Brother, you're going places. That's right. The confidence that you have, I can honestly say I did not have when I was still in college. Not to that level. You know, I had it, you know, in the football realm, but where you are, brother. Hey man, I'm glad I got your phone number in my phone. Honestly, man, it's a connection that I want to keep, man. I applaud you. Yeah. This is HBCU love. From Chicago's finest in the building. That's right. Putting on for Chi-Town. That's right.
So speaking of everyone's locations, can you talk a little bit about how, just as we begin to wrap up, how your environment, your home environment ultimately shaped your worldview and perspective, and like how that shaped you becoming the person you are today, and why you would even be interested in a panel discussion like this?
I think for me, growing up, like I said, I was in a very diverse environment. It wasn't majority of African Americans, but I think the biggest part for me was how tight me and my family are, and the relationship that we have built over the years, and the conversation that we've had in my household. As my sister, Talisa, she's here, and she can attest to this, that we've always been taught to be strong and stand on what we believe in. And I think that's the most important thing, growing up in an environment that's not just really supportive of you. And I played sports all my life, and I was kind of looked at as I wasn't going to be able to do it. And I remember it hurt me, and it brought me closer to my black counterparts when I was about 11 years old. And I was probably like one of the best athletes in the baseball league that we were in. And they voted for the All-Star team, and I didn't get put on the team. And it was nobody. I know for a fact it was, and I'm not just, you know, speaking up about myself, but they just didn't want me on the team, and I didn't even know there was a team, as far as the All-Star selection. And I felt like that was kind of the thing that set me forth. And I noticed that I had to separate myself and be more around people that are like-minded for me. And that's why when I got to college, it was a beautiful experience. So unlike Markham and Willie, I didn't grow up with my parents being HBCU graduates per se, but they were, and they are, I should say, community leaders. Their community leaders being that they serve in the office of being pastors, and that served as a very profound impression, on me, because I always realized that leadership was critical, but also a sense of belonging to something bigger than yourself is critical. Um, just like learning about your history gives you that sense of pride, that sense of belonging to something greater than your own experience. So, being that I came from that background, approaching college, yes, I learned a ton because, like I said, there were things I just was not exposed to in a sense of excellence in what I saw on Morgan State's campus. But I was equipped with the desire to belong. I was equipped with the desire and the understanding of how critical leadership skills were, and the office of a leader is. It's not something to take lightly, and if bestowed upon the right person, the masses can be led to higher heights. So that's, I guess, in a nutshell, how I came to an HBCU and what my upbringing equipped me with.
I think, well, my upbringing equipped me to be the person I am through. Well, one, my mother, God rest her soul, was Delta from Virginia Union, so she was already coming with it, and she articulated her Black pride every step of the way, in every manner that she was afforded with, and that legacy of her being instilled to me, as well as my father, who also is a graduate of an HBCU, Winston-Salem State. For Dad, you already know. I already know that's what you wanted me to say, so there goes your plug. Um, uh, he would give me books to read, right, or read me books, I should say, such as like Jackie Robinson or others. And I was fascinated about that. Was it right there? I was fascinated about my people. And then I remember, embarrassingly enough, we lived in a predominantly white area, but it was coming up to the 2000 elections when I was in first grade, and my teacher, I'll never forget, her name was Mrs. Freeman, and so she's asking us about, do you guys know that there's an election coming about? And we were all like, yes, and the Senate third, and I was alone back, of course, and she then suggested who we should want to vote for, and the name she kept, bringing out was George Bush. George Bush. So later that day, my dad goes to vote, and I see him pull the lever for Al Gore, and I'm wondering, wait, why are you selecting Al Gore? You need to be selecting George Bush. And when he got out of the booth, you just saw all these white folks look at him like, I can't believe you voted for Al Gore type. So I felt so embarrassed for him, and from then on, I always wanted to make sure I was knowledgeable about what is going on, politics and otherwise, even at a very young age. And so ever since, I've always been engaged. Then, like I said, even through attending PWI, and then eventually matriculate into an HBCU, always wanted to keep that engagement when it comes to my people and staying active politically and otherwise.
Yeah, I would say that I've always been blessed to be around those who were pretty much somehow involved in the community. And so just seeing that in this, even studying some of the civil rights movements, you will see that the heart of a lot of these movements was the Black church and the importance of, having that spiritual presence. And so that's something that also inspired me and encouraged me, because sometimes today it's not as common. I'm not gonna say it's not as common, but we don't see as much as we did in previous movements, seeing that spiritual presence within certain movements. So that's something that kind of motivated me to be active, and that's one of the reasons, as I said earlier, why I chose the HBCU, but also just to be a little bit more aware of what's going on in our community.
I think Dr. Banks had a question he had posted. He says, "How do you advise other young people to stay encouraged in the struggle?" Um, for me, I would like to look at it. I try to stay on the positive side, to not look at it as a struggle, but more so as an opportunity to do something different that has never been done before. As we've seen, Kamala Harris, she's on the stage now, and I would just use her as an example to the youth, being so that I work with them every day and have serious conversations and very real conversation with them. I have to be mindful, and like Greg said early on in the conversation, we have to be real with these children and let them know what is and what they can be, and that's whatever they choose to be in life. And I think that you have to just pour positive energy into the youth and let them know that you wouldn't be where you are if it wasn't for somebody giving you the same advice to do more in life. And I think that would be my advice for the youth.
I would say encouragement oftentimes comes in two forms, in my opinion. Carter G. Woodson talked about this in the Miseducation of the Negro. He said that students learn best from, being represented in an instruction, or at least from somebody who looks like them. I would go further to say that my generation, our generation, we learn best from peer leaders and also instructors who look like us. So I think it's important to have a brigade, if you will, of accountability partners. We joke about it, but literally my group messages that I'm in is because I'm amongst people who are, man, from every walk of life. We're sharpening each other. We're sharing resources and information with each other. That's the biggest key. Even as I am a teacher, I got to realize that there's a huge age difference between myself and my students. So I have to rely on their peer leaders. I have to make the instruction relatable to them. So the encouragement to continue to fight and engage in the struggle upward is always dependent on peer leaders, in my opinion. And just being insulated and surrounded by others who have similar interests, so that you can be sharpened and y'all can share and bounce information off of each other. It's essential.
Um, I think even though it's more, well, actually, no, it's pretty important. Uh, Dr. King once said, we're coming to DC to collect that check, right? And now, ironically, 50 plus years later, it's actually, in a literal sense, we really do want that check. But the point is that in tangible form, you see how the United States government and local governments, because of who you elect from a statewide basis, affect what it is that you desire, right? That you feel that is best for not only yourself, but for all Americans, right? And so as of today, right, we all know Joe Biden wants to dish out the $1,400, but there is 10 Republicans today who wanted to create a new version of his proposed plan and only allow $1,400 checks to go out to individuals who make $50,000 and under, right? Well, there's 50. That's not a lot, and those people should have $1,400, no doubt. But then, what do you say to the family who is a family of five and total they only bring in $90,000, right? That's a lot of mouths to feed. That's a lot of bills to pay. So that's a tangible form, right? In addition, young people want to know, how does this affect me? Jalen, you're in school, right? But you're not in school, right? Right? You're not physically at Hampton, right? Why? Because we've seen how this government has conducted itself over the course of this pandemic, right? And instead of implementing policies and procedures that would be necessary for us to be further along, we're where we're at right now, right? With over 440,000 people dead, unfortunately, and over 25 million Americans with the virus and counting. So I think that these current issues in today's world, if weren't ever more relevant to a young person, among other things, these are something that could pretty much, I think, bring them along to understand that, okay, local, state, federal government affects me in this type of way, and now I need to get involved.
I would just to echo off what you all said, I agree. Something else I know that has inspired me and kind of kept me encouraged is just looking back on just some of the previous movements and just some of the history, because I think it's very important to understand that many leaders in the past in our history have done significant things. And so that's why a lot of times you see in certain history books, you won't see a lot of the accomplishments of Black people or African people, because if you know that what your people were capable of, you know that you can in turn do the same. And so I think it's very important to just understand the history. I know a lot of times history can be boring to some people, but if we begin to just look into some of the great things that our people have done, I think that can keep us encouraged. I know it keeps me encouraged to know that if we've done certain things before, how much more can we do now with the more resources we have, with the more opportunities we have, and with a better representation in positions of power.
To echo on you, Jalen, learning from our history, me and my friends, we were talking the other day, and I was like, man, what I'm noticing? Right now I'm reading Martin Luther King's autobiography, but I just started to notice that all of our leaders were a part of some sort of civic organization. I keep saying this because I'm realizing how important it is that if we're going to try to attempt to tackle this whole idea of the upheaval of our race, you got to be connected to something larger than yourself. I was asked once in a PD, or not even just me, it was posed to the group, do you feel that it's your sole responsibility to solve all of the problems? And I told people, I'm like, that's fantastical. Like, we got to stop this whole idea of the lone hero. No, it wasn't just Martin Luther King that led the bus boycott in 55, 56 and saw to it that the buses were integrated in 57. This was a brigade of community members. These were people collectively doing this. So it takes a community. You have to plug yourself into bigger organizations, even small think tanks. Get those group messages popping, you know what I'm saying, and stay engaged. I think that's pivotal, Jalen, learning from our history, or else we're doomed to repeat it, and oftentimes far worse.
I love that piece that you all shared about um, history and knowing your history being important. Because for me, as I told y'all prior to, it's always been something that's been important to me growing up, and having my story be that some of my family members are from the other side of the world, being from Cameroon. So having that history on one side that I can't get on my African American side, I just think being that person that has that intersectional experience of the diaspora has really made me want to, of the diaspora, excuse me, has made me want to learn and just experience as much as I can in terms of history and heritage and culture. And so that's something that's always been important to me. And I wanted to ask you all, just as we close out, what do you think is important for us to focus on as a people moving forward in terms of our history? And how do we move forward as HBCUs into this new era that we are going to have as Americans?
Well, I would like to quote something the Nation of Islam is famous for saying: knowledge of self produces love for self. And I think that's the most essential thing for our people when we talk about learning our history, when we talk about being current, right? And as it pertains to our HBCUs, we can't falter. We can't afford to falter. And we have to present instruction that's relevant to the times. We have to continue to reach the community. We can't get caught up in this black bourgeoisie either. We have to remain committed to the struggle and be authentic, because that's what sets us apart. Sure, we have a lot of black graduates of PWIs, but what sets us apart is the authenticity, is the community atmosphere, is the family, is the reliability of the institution. So those two things, of course, knowledge of self, producing that love for self, anchoring yourself in scholarship and community. It's important to belong to something bigger than you. So those are the next steps in my opinion.
I would say just piggyback off Greg and just say keep pushing the envelope. At the end of the day, we just got to keep pushing and make sure that we're doing everything to line up our ducks so that we can be in position to have what we're owed at the end of the day. Um, and it's for me, it's just that simple. Continue to lead in our communities, be a part of something beautiful and that's bigger than us, um, and just stay involved and connect with as many people as you can. And I think that if you go from there, it's a starting point, and you'll be successful at the end of the road.
I agree that it's important to be a part of something that's bigger and greater than yourself, and also agree with the quote from the Nation of Islam that knowledge of self produces love of self. So I think a lot of problems come from a lack of love, self-love, and the love of others. And if we can't efficiently love ourselves, then how can we expect ourselves to love other people? So I think a lot of times that a lot of our issues can be solved by just love. Just love people, love others, love ourselves. And then from that love, then that's when we'll begin to see unity. We'll eliminate this elitist mindset, or I'm better than you, I'm better than you. But I believe that if we begin to love ourselves first, then love others, then we can see true change, and then we can see a more cohesive effort as we continue into this struggle, if you will.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of all you guys, I agree wholeheartedly. I'll take it a little bit deeper in the sense of just historical facts. I shouldn't say it like that, but that's just me. But I harken it back to how even on the slave plantations, right, when we tried to build coalitions of family units, right, and one way or the other, the master would try to break it up and disrupt it, whether it's selling people off or bringing people into his house, right, separating it through a color barrier, right, because they've always seen the dynamic that when we're unified, there's nothing that we can't do or we can't accomplish. And I think that forceful and existential breakdown of our unity has always been perpetuated by them, because they know that if these folks right here understand the will of their ways, then consequently, we'll be up a creek without a paddle. So I think that, as we alluded to earlier, knowing your history and knowing that at the end of it, unity is what creates power, right? If you want to talk about a sense of fear that or one of the earliest sense of fears that was enacted on the United States, the 1803 Igbo Rebellion, right, where there was Igbo slaves off the coast of Georgia. Ironically, it's Georgia, always Georgia, right? Also one of the heart of the Confederacy, but where Igbo slaves said, damn being a slave, I'd rather die with pride, right? And went into the water, and they all, met, the great maker. But it was that act of disobedience that created the fearfulness that for the next 57 years, the harshness and terror that came about when it came to the treatment of the American slave. And I think that when we finally understand that, regardless of whatever territorial differences that we have or whatever, any other things that really don't matter, but all in all, that our collective is what matters the most, that's when I think we'll begin to prosper, even in spite of the challenges that we face from outside forces. Because, like I said, together as one, we can defeat all.
Awesome, awesome. I love that you all shared your differences of opinions and being able to hear your different perspectives and insights throughout this entire experience has been amazing. So thank you for agreeing to participate in this panel discussion. And I just wanted to thank you all for offering different points of view, as well as agreeing to participate in the HBCU experience, which I do want to tell the audience just a little bit about who I am and what this brand is and what I do with it. So the HBCU experience is a brand that I started my freshman year. I'm a graduating senior, strategic communications major, liberal studies minor at Hampton. And I started it my freshman year, spring semester. I began to interview various Hampton alum and students about Hampton's 150th legacy at the time. And it was for their anniversary. And I began to continue that through to my junior year, and I began to share those interviews going into my junior year via this platform. So you can find us on IG at underscore the HBCU experience, and you can find us on Facebook at the HBCU experience. And this here is a picture of my podcast. You can't really see it on the lighting I have going on, but it's called the HBCU Hall of Fame. And the podcast is just me sharing the different stories of HBCU alumni, talking about their careers and how their HBCU experience prepared them for their lives and for the careers they're in now. So you can go ahead and follow us on Anchor. And since this month is Black History Month, we will officially be relaunching and sharing, of course, every interview that I've been able to do starting spring 2018 when I was a freshman at Hampton. So this is the continuation of that, and I just want to thank you all for agreeing to come here tonight and participate in this event, and for the audience agreeing to be here. And I appreciate you all for wanting to hear what we have to say. And that's about it. Do you guys have anything else to share before we go?
No, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and thank you everybody that came to attend. And I hope that we just keep pushing the envelope, like I said earlier. And at one point in time, we have hundreds and thousands of viewers here on this stage, and I'll be an attendee or on the panel if need be. So thank you all, and have a great week. Set the tempo for the week this week. Start your day.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you all enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'm going to end the session now.